Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mike and Andrew Show. I'm your host, Andrew Surwick, here with Mike Meredith. Say hello, Mike.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
So we're just two guys who just love sports, and this whole podcast will just be simply about that. Sports all over the country. We'll talk NBA, NHL, NFL, MLB, and college football, and some college hoops later down the line when that comes around. Mike, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so as Andrew mentioned, my name is Mike Meredith here. I would say for my biggest talking point here on the show is definitely going to be NBA. Is probably my favorite sport, but of course, like Andrew mentioned, we have a wide variety of different topics here covering sports on all bases here.
Yep, and I'm more of the NHL guy here, but obviously Mike and I both know a ton about football and the MLB. But when it comes to the NBA and the NHL, we'll both have our own sort of deal with that. But everything else, we're pretty both knowledgeable on. Anyway, so let's get started here with the NFL Week One coming up. Thursday night kickoff. Lions and Chiefs at Arrowhead. Pretty big game considering that the Lions the line is now moved for the Lions. They're only down. They're catching 2.5 points. So Kansas City losing possibly Travis Kelsey now with a hyperextended knee, and then also still no Chris Jones contract. So Mike, what is your take on all this going on?
Yes, I'm glad that you brought up the Travis Kelsey and Chris Jones situation because that was one thing that I wanted to bring up in this game. The Chiefs and the Lions here is, Travis Kelsey is by far their biggest weapon on offense, and with him possibly being out here, that's a huge advantage. And their best defensive player, Chris Jones, still holding out for contract issues. I think that the Lions, honestly, with I would say the Chiefs' three best players, Mahomes, Kelsey, and Jones, two of the three possibly being out. The Lions, man, I think they have a good chance of upsetting the Chiefs in week one. I think that they can do it. If they can just play some sound football, Dan Campbell can get his game plan right, and the players have come out looking good, I think they have a real shot at just winning the game outright.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think things have been falling towards the Lions' favor this whole week, and well, really this whole offseason with the Chris Jones contract situation. Um, some notes here real quick for everyone. Mike and I are both from the Detroit area, so we kind of have a little bit of a Detroit bias here. But we do try to stay away from that when we can when we're talking about the Detroit teams. But yeah, I think Detroit really does have a good shot here. Looking at everything that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have built in Detroit, and with additions like Brian Branch that they took in the second round of this year's draft, I think the Lions are looking really really good. They look good in camp. They look good in preseason, and I think they can beat the Chiefs on Thursday night.
Yeah, man. I think it's going to be super interesting. I'm going to really be looking at the rookies as well. Like you mentioned, Brian Branch. We also have, Jameer Gibbs and Jack Campbell here, who were both first round picks. So I like to see what they can do in this first week.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. Speaking of the Lions, one of the top teams that they'll be fighting for in the division, the Vikings will play the Bucks this weekend. They're favored by 6.5 right now for Sunday. Can I get your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, I mean, that is a pretty big line, 6.5. That's, but, Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield is now the quarterback, and I'm not sure how much I can trust him. I'm pretty sure this is Baker's first experience with Tampa. They had Tom Brady all these last few years, so him adjusting to this offense is going to be a little bit difficult. I feel like at first, and of course Baker is like a fringe starter at this point. Him and Kyle Trask were fighting for the starting job come preseason. Minnesota's got Justin Jefferson. He's going to ball out here. I think it's actually a pretty good line. I do see them possibly winning by a touchdown here. So for me, I think the Vikings do secure the win, and I will take them with the 6.5 as well.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the Bucks I think are actually going to win their division with a sub 500 record
Yeah,
again.
that division is horrible.
That division is just horrible. I think the Vikings. Last year they had an incredible run. They went 11-0 in one score games, which
Mm-hmm.
trying to repeat that is going to be very hard to do. But and I still think they'll probably be very close with the Lions, and they have two games in together in the last 3 weeks of the season, the Vikings and the Lions. So I think that division battle for the top spot between those two will be very, very tight, and we'll just have to see. But yeah, I'm taking the Vikings in this one. Looking elsewhere, we have dog crap versus dog crap with the Cardinals and the Commanders, with Washington favored by 7 points in that one.
Wow. So I think I remember reading earlier on this year that the Cardinals are, I believe, not favored in any games this year. They are just, bottom of the barrel team right now, going through a lot of struggles. They just got a new change in, I believe, management and coaching. Kyler Murray's had some issues with the team. We'll have to see. I feel like 7 might be a little bit too much of a spread because Washington's really not that great either. I might take Arizona in the points there, but I do see probably Washington taking the win for the game. But I think I will go with Arizona in the points on that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with you there. The Kyler Murray situation is interesting to say the least. And then I think the Cardinals just are flat out just trying to tank on purpose. I mean, this is what they've done in the past couple of weeks with the team overall has just left you wondering what are they doing and what's the NFL going to do about this, because it seems like they're almost intentionally trying to tank the team this season. But I still think Washington improved upon last season, and I'm going to take Washington there. I think 7's a big spread, but I still think Washington wins that one. Um, Going over to the NFC East, we got the Cowboys and the Giants on Sunday night. Dallas favored by 3.5.
So I think that's actually a pretty good spread there. That's a big rivalry game. Cowboys and the Giants. The Giants really surprised a lot of people, I feel like, last year. They won a playoff game. Daniel Jones seemed to improve. Saquon Barkley, I believe, is on a contract year this year. So they have a lot to prove. But, Dallas is always in the shadows here of the NFL world with expectations through the roof here. We'll have to see how Dak does. Dak is so unpredictable, man. Some games Dak will go off, and some games he'll throw 4 interceptions. It all just depends. I do think the Cowboys will probably end up winning, but it's going to be a close game. I think that the Giants will put up a good fight.
Yeah, so I'm a big time Dak hater, but I think the Giants are just not looking that good. Obviously, I have Saquon in a contract year, but I think Dallas is gonna fall second in the NFC East at the end of the year, obviously behind Philadelphia, who is I think the best team in football right now. Um, I honestly was really hoping for them to win the Super Bowl this year, but yeah, I think the Cowboys are gonna win here, and I think they're gonna actually win big. I think they're gonna more than cover this 3.5 point spread. Looking elsewhere, Monday night we have the Bills and the Jets kicking off. Buffalo's favored by only 2.5. Do you think the hype around Aaron Rodgers coming there has made them uh, look a lot better than they actually are?
Yeah, so I think so. I've seen a lot of people putting the Jets in like their top 10 and sometimes even top 5 teams in the NFL right now. Aaron Rodgers, I think he's still good. He can still put up a lot of numbers, but I think right now in his career he's a little bit overrated. But I do think that their young players are going to make some steps. Sauce Gardner was so great last year. I think he'll take a step up this year as well. but I think it's still Buffalo's division to lose. I think Buffalo is still really great. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. They still got uh, most of the team that's been doing so well for them over these last 3 to 4 years. I think that Buffalo handles the 2.5 point spread and wins probably the most anticipated or one of the most anticipated games of the first week.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Buffalo's going to take actually a step back this year. Um, Personally, they didn't make many improvements, and last year they kind of proved that they're not really uh, I guess ready to just dominate the AFC like Kansas City can.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I think uh, Aaron Rodgers is just he's washed up. He's old. He's about that age where he probably should just consider retiring. But uh, we'll see. I think Buffalo will cover at least. But I don't think the Jets are going to be nearly as good as everyone thinks they will be. But we'll just have to see. Um, and then a couple other games here on Sunday afternoon. You have Packers Bears. Chicago only favored by one in that one. Justin Fields is looking really, really good now. So I think the Bears are going to win that game.
Yeah, I think that's you know I think that they're both kind of mediocre teams this year. I mean, the Packers and the Bears probably like below 500 teams this year. They just aren't really that great. And Justin Fields has shown flashes of what he can do. I agree with you. I think I'm going to take the Bears in that game.
Yeah, it's just the the one thing that we don't know about the Packers is Jordan Love. We don't know how good he is. For all we know, he could be the reincarnation of Aaron Rodgers because he did exactly what Aaron Rodgers did: sit on the sidelines for many years, learning under a great quarterback. And I'm almost fearful of the Packers this year because Jordan Love, if he's good, the Packers are going to be really, really good this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's basically doing exactly what Rodgers did.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then, lastly, just another thought: the Battle of Ohio. We have the Bengals and the Browns with Cincy favored by 2.5. What's your take on that?
Oh, I am riding Cincy this year. I'm really high on Cincy. I know, Burrow, Chase, uh, love their team. Adding some more depth on the offensive line. They've needed help at the offensive line for a while now. That's always been their weak point. They signed a few guys there, and I think that they will have no problem handling Cleveland. I do think Cleveland will be better this year, though, than last year, but give me Cincy for sure in that game.
Yeah, I'm with you here. The Bengals just have everything going for them. They have the swagger factor with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and then just everything for this matchup is just looking like it could be a just a shootout between the two teams, and I think honestly that Cleveland could pull off the upset here over the Bengals. So we'll have to obviously see if Deshaun Watson is any slightly bit of his former self. I think we could see the Browns actually winning this game.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Deshaun Watson, he was suspended most of last year, so we'll have to see how he does.
Yeah, I think if he plays at like at least the 80% level of what he was uh, when he first started out in the league, he'll definitely be um, he'll definitely bring the Browns to a to maybe a division championship. We'll just have to see.
That division's tough though.
Yeah, it is a very very tough division. You're right, but we'll see. Only time will tell, right?
hmm
All right. So I'm gonna present to you some things
Okay.
about the 2023 season. This is the hot take blitz. So I'm gonna give you 10 different hot takes here, and
hmm
you're just gonna tell me on like a 1 to 5, or use whatever scale you want to, of hot takes, and you're just gonna give me your slight opinion and what you think of the take. If it's like super hot or not hot at all.
Okay.
All right, so all these hot takes are from Yahoo Sports. So the first one here: the Houston Texans win 7 games.
That is like a 4 out of 5, man. Unless like CJ Stroud comes out and plays like damn near an MVP candidate, I can't see that happening. I do see them making improvements. They got CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, you know, two of the top picks in the draft, but nah, that's a little too optimistic right there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they'll win 7 games. I think 4 or 5 is on the table, but 7, I just don't see it. I mean, CJ Stroud,
Mm-hmm.
as a Michigan fan, it hurts me to say this, but CJ Stroud is a really, really good quarterback. He obviously was very scary playing against watching my team play against him every single year. But no, I just don't think the Texans are going to win anything close to 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so number 2, the Chicago Bears will pick twice in the top 10 because they have Carolina's pick this year as well.
I'm gonna put that hot take at a 3 because I do think that it's possible, but there's also a lot of bad teams, man, that could take up some of those spots in the draft. I think that, Chicago and Carolina, I don't think they're going to be bottom 5 teams. So if they were to get both those picks, it would probably be like in the 6 to 10 range. I think it's possible, but also I could see it not happening as well. I think it's kind of like middle of the road on the hot take meter.
Yeah, I think the Carolina pick will be in the top 10. I don't think the Chicago's pick will actually be in the top 10 at all this year. I think Chicago. I think a lot of people are underestimating Chicago. They made a ton of improvements in the offseason
Mm-hmm.
this year, and Justin Fields, like I said earlier, he is looking really, really good. So I think Chicago is going to surprise a lot of people. Number 3, Chris Olave finishes top 3 in Offensive Player of the Year voting.
I'm going to give that one. I'll give that one a 4 because I really do love Chris Olave, and we'll see how he works with Derek Carr. Derek Carr's first year in New Orleans, but there's just so many damn good offensive players, man. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Christian McCaffrey, you got Jamar Chase. Cooper Cup's going to be out, so that's someone who we won't really have to look forward to. You know, Travis Kelsey, if he comes back, he has a good chance. But I really like Chris Olave, but that just seems like top 3, man. You really got to be putting up some crazy numbers, and I can't see Olave hitting that just yet.
Okay, so if we're using like the scale of 1 to 5 for this is like an 11 to me. This is so goddamn hot. Like, first of all,
Yeah.
Derek Carr is a slightly above average quarterback, like very slightly above. So I just don't see Olave even being close to the top 3, top 10 maybe, but unless Derek Carr suddenly becomes like Brett Favre level good, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Number 4 here, Desmond Ritter gets benched.
Now, on this, I'm going to say a 3 because I mean, who else is Atlanta really going to put in there? Um, Desmond Ritter, I feel like he still has a lot to prove, but I think that he will ride out the rest of the season. I don't see him getting benched, but if he comes on and plays like crap, um, I could see them pulling the plug on him pretty early. Just have to see.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, I mean, who will Atlanta put in if
Yeah,
Desmond Ritter
exactly.
can't play, right? It's kind of like it's kind of like the Lions situation a couple years ago, where just we had no one in the backup quarterback spot,
Hmm.
and obviously he's not under threat of losing his job, even if he's horrible, because who's beneath him is even worse. So I don't see it. I think that's obviously extremely hot. I put that as a 5. Um, when was this article written? Because I'm not sure if that is accurate anymore. Um, so we'll skip down. The Broncos win the AFC West.
So the Broncos won the AFC West. I'm putting that on a 5 on the hot scale. Kansas City, I think, is still the king of that division, even though they've been banged up and some of their players may be regressing. I mean, until they actually start regressing, we start seeing them actually losing. I can't do that. And I am a big Chargers fan. I know that they always seem to fall flat every year, but the Chargers, I think, still have a good chance of taking that division. And then even the Raiders, like I know they have Garoppolo now. We'll see how they do with him, but they got Devontae Adams. They have a solid team. I think that they can, win 8 or 9 games. And I just don't see Denver doing it. I do think Denver's going to be better than they were last year because they were just atrocious last year. Russell Wilson was awful. But yeah, I'm putting that at a 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that as about a 5 as well. I mean, Sean Payton, he's an incredibly good coach, and so that's definitely going to help the Broncos' chances. But I mean, are they really gonna beat Kansas City? No, absolutely
No.
not. So, and if Russell Wilson's better than he was last year, which I assume he will, especially with Sean Payton being his coach now, I just I don't know, man. I think the Broncos are going to be a lot better than people think, but I think they're going to be maybe a 9, maybe a 10 win team. But I think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna win the AFC West at all. So back to that one that I just skipped. I just had to make sure that he didn't sign a contract yet, and he didn't. So we'll go back to this one. Tua will sign an extension before Joe Burrow.
I'm gonna put that at a 4. I think that Joe Burrow should get the extension before Tua. He's proven a lot more. He's Joe Burrow has had the injury issues, but I feel like Tua's had more even. It seems like he was always in concussion protocol last year, and um, for me, I mean, I think Tua is an all right quarterback. He's probably like middle of the road among the NFL starters here, but Joe Burrow deserves it before Tua does. So
Yeah, so I think because I was just looking at it. So it's Joe Burrow's camp that's actually uh, holding off on signing an extension. So I'm actually looking at everything. I'm gonna put this at like a 2 because I think it's very plausible now, considering how well Tua was playing before he got injured last year. Um, that and if Joe Burrow's camp really is trying to hold out on an extension for now, I think it is possible Tua will sign that extension before Joe Burrow ever does. But we'll obviously have to see. Time will only tell on that. But we'll. I think he will do this. He will sign it before Joe Burrow. Uh, Here we go. Lamar Jackson throws for 4,000 yards and wins the NFL MVP.
for me, I'm putting that at a 5. Lamar Jackson, he's already won the NFL MVP. I don't think that's really too much out of the question, but 4,000 yards, man, that's tough, man. That's like elite company quarterbacks right there. I don't know if I see Lamar Jackson doing that. Plus, it's he does that and wins MVP. Uh, Man, I think that's a very hot take.
Now, Lamar can't throw. There's no way he's getting 4,000 yards. There's no way he's getting like 2,000 yards. I think he can't throw. He can only
Yeah.
run. I don't even know how he won the MVP the one time he did it. I don't see it happening. There's no way he's gonna be even near 4,000 yards. And MVP maybe if he can rush for 4,000 yards somehow, then then yeah. But there's just no way he's gonna throw for 4,000 yards. Uh, so Justin Fields becomes the first Chicago Bear ever to throw for 4,000 yards.
Again, I do like Justin Fields and his development here, but 4,000 is just too crazy. I think that's also a 5. I do think Justin Fields makes steady improvements this year as compared to last year, but no way do I see him throwing for 4,000 yards.
So Chicago's defense sucks, right? So the only way they're going to
Yeah,
win games is
his offense.
is on the offense. So I think Justin Fields is going to be throwing the ball a lot more, and the way he's developed, I think he'll be a smarter quarterback. He's not going to throw it into coverage. He's not going to you know he's going to take less sacks. I think because last year. 30 he led the league in this 32% of the time when he was under pressure he would take a sack, which was the highest in the league by I think like 3 or 4%. I'd have to go back and look at that article that I saw, but I mean, like a third of the time he was under pressure, he took a sack. That is not good. Obviously, they built up their offensive line a bit, so they'll be better. But man, I don't know. 4,000 yards is going to be tough. I think it's possible. I'm gonna give that a 3 because I do think it's possible if he is the quarterback that I think he is, but we'll just have to see. So number 9 here, the Rams end up with a top 8 pick.
I think that's honestly, I'm gonna put that at like a 1. I really think that's super possible. Um, Stafford's been dealing with injuries for a minute now. Cup's gonna be out at least the first few games of the year. They just look so out of sorts. They were just horrible last year. I think Ramsey's going to regress. I still think Donald will be great, but for me, I see that very possible. I think they are going to finish bottom of their division in the NFC West.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very cold take because Stafford obviously dealing with the injury issues. Cup is injured right now, so he won't be there to start the season. They have guys like Aaron Donald too. I think honestly, I think I could see Cup and Donald both being traded out by the trade deadline, just because I think they're gonna be so far back just after the first 8 weeks that they're gonna need to move assets, and the best way to do that is get rid of your best 2 players, and you just start the rebuild now, and hope you can sell off Stafford for cheap because yeah, you ain't gonna get much for an older quarterback who I still think has a lot of talent, but all these injuries are piling up. So and no one wants to pay a whole bunch for damaged goods. So we'll obviously have to see what will come of that. But yeah, this is very cold. I think they'll be in the bottom 5 at the league standings at the end of the year.
Yeah, them in Arizona, they could possibly be the 2 worst teams in the same division. So uh, I could totally see that happening.
Yeah. Here's a question for you: Who tanks more, the Rams or the Cardinals?
I think probably the Cardinals, but I mean the Rams have a lot. I feel like the Rams have a lot better chance of building a lot more draft capital if they trade Aaron Donald. I mean that's huge right there, and Cooper Cup. That's going to give them a huge return on anything. So I
Yeah,
think that the Cardinals are probably worse right now and probably will finish with a worse record. But I could see the Rams just like you said selling everyone off at the deadline.
yeah. I don't think the Rams will be anywhere good. I think a lot of teams like shout out the Lions could use a guy like Cooper Cup, especially because JMO he's not looking that hot. So we'll have to see. And so lastly, the last one here. Trey Lance starts games, but not for the 49ers. So I think this article was written before they traded him to Dallas. What's your take on that?
Yeah. So I guess basically now is will Trey Lance start any games for the Cowboys? And I don't think so unless Dak gets hurt. I do think that they are going to roll with Dak this year, but Trey Lance has been under that Aaron Rodgers situation where he's just been sitting and sitting. They gave him the chance. I think it was last year, 2 years ago, and then he got hurt like in the first couple games. Then he was out. So we'll have to see. But if Dak starts, looking really bad and or maybe looking really good, and they might move off of him. But that contract is just so bad. It's like Dak's getting $40 million a year. I'm not sure who's going to want to take that on. But yeah, so I think Trey Lance has a chance, but I'm going to put it at like a 4. I don't see it happening unless Dak gets hurt.
Yeah, I don't see it happening, and I think Trey Lance just flat out sucks. This is why you don't take FCS quarterbacks, people, ever. As like the Niners, they traded 3 first-round picks for him. 3.
Yep. And then
Any
they got a fourth round pick in return
right.
in the Trey Lance trade. So,
Any other team, that GM would be fucking fired and over something as stupid as that. Especially giving him away for just a 4th-round pick after you gave up so much for him. There's no way any other GM would still have a job, but I just but the reason why their GM still has a job because they still win games, they still make the playoffs, and they're still going to do that this year with Brock Purdy, I think.
mm-hmm.
So that is the NFL Hot Take Blitz. So, week 1 of college football has come and gone, and there is a lot to talk about there, but we're going to just highlight some of the bigger games that happened. Number 14, Utah beating Florida at home. Did you watch any of that game, and what are your thoughts on that?
So I didn't end up watching the game. I believe it was like actually the first game of the year. I remember seeing that. It was very early on, but wasn't surprised Utah won. I know you and me have talked that Utah is going to be a juggernaut this year. They are going to be out and could possibly make the college football playoffs. We'll have to see. But yeah, not surprised at all that Utah took the W.
No, not at all. And they used both their quarterbacks, their second and third string quarterbacks, because the one quarterback. Hold on, let me look here real quick. Yeah, so yeah, Bryson Barnes, he can really throw the ball. He went 12 for 18, 159 yards and a touchdown. And then you had Nate Johnson, who went actually 3 for 4, but only for 6 yards on that. But he can run, man. That kid can run. So, Utah without Cam Rising was able to get the job done against, let's face it, a not so good Florida team. They're kind of struggling right now, and I don't see Florida being anything good this year again. But I think Utah, like you mentioned, we've talked in the past. I think they're one of the best teams in the country. I think they have a very good chance at making the playoffs this year, so long as the Pac-12 doesn't cannibalize itself like it seems to always do in its swan song season, no less. Which, by the way, college football's dead when you have no Pac-12, and then nothing says Atlantic Coast Conference like Stanford, Cal, and SMU, the Dallas market. Like nothing says Atlantic Coast like Oakland, San Francisco, and Dallas. Like, come on, man, we've lost so much in college football, and the regionality's gone. College football's dead to me, but that's another topic for another day. But yeah, I think also Cam Rising, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. I know he didn't obviously play this week. Hopefully he does this weekend. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Moving on, though, we had we had a blowout win. Oklahoma beating Arkansas State 73-0.
Yeah,
That
there was a lot of crazy blowout wins this weekend, and I believe there was a video of like the Arkansas State coach like crying on the sidelines or something. He was like they were just losing so bad. I saw so many memes of just like throw the damn towel, man. Like, they were just running up the score, and yeah, there was a lot of blowouts this weekend, but that's the case with college football, man.
Yeah,
there's always those games.
yeah. That video was fucking hilarious, dude. That was hilarious, and it's like you're coaching for Arkansas State. Like, your job, no matter what, your job is secure even with a blowout loss like that. Now, if you were coaching Arkansas, yeah, you can go ahead and cry like that when you're getting blown out that bad. But when you're for a nobody school in a nobody conference, getting blown out by a somebody school in a somebody conference, there's no reason to cry, man. You're just a big baby at that point. Um, some other good games, which by the way, with the week 0 thing, Notre Dame had 2 games in week 1. Um, I think that's just stupid. The way they schedule things with week 0 and week 1, it's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some other games. Penn State beat Virginia or West Virginia 38-15. Uh, what's his name? The quarterback. Uh, Drew Aller, man. He looks like he could be the real deal for Penn State this year. Who I think has better chance of winning the Big Ten over Ohio State. But I still think Michigan's going to win the Big Ten. But I think Penn State's the biggest threat to Michigan this year.
Yeah, Penn State's good, man. They're gonna be a team to look out for.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's talk about last night's game for a minute here. Duke upsetting Clemson 28-7. Clemson led in every single stat except for scoring. Dabo Sweeney saying that was the weirdest game he's ever been a part of. But I mean, they had almost like I think like 400 more total yards of offense and still ended up losing to Duke by
Yeah, and
by
they
3
didn't
scores.
just lose. They got blown out by 3 touchdowns. Like crazy. Just such a weird game. But having Duke beat you in something that's not basketball, it just doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't, and I like I think Clemson just being ranked number 9 I think was just recency bias still because of what they were able to do a couple years ago. Um, but man, last year they didn't look good, and this year losing game 1 against Duke. Come on, man. I think if Clemson's not near the bottom 25 or near or outside the top 20, I should say, I don't know what we're doing here with these rankings, man, because that's ridiculous. I don't think this should have been top 10 at all, but God, that was horrible. And and then Colorado beating TCU on the road. Um, did you see any of that game? Because man, that was
Yeah.
wild.
So I did catch a little bit of that game, mainly the highlights. I honestly think that was the game of the week for sure. That game was so wild. All eyes were on Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter. His Heisman odds jumped like 6,000. Like he was like plus 8,000. Then he went to like plus 2,200 after that game. Like he is an absolute stud on both offense and defense. Um, Colorado, man, they said they already matched their win total from last year. It's going to be crazy to follow Deion and that team this year.
So, man, I am sick and tired of all these ads and all the dick sucking by Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson about how good Colorado is and just talking about Deion Sanders. I'm tired of it, man. I wanted TCU, like I knew TCU was not going to be good this year. I was hoping TCU would just come out and punch Colorado in the mouth and just blow them out, get all the hype to shut up. And now that they beat a ranked team who, I'm going to be honest, shouldn't have been ranked at all because they lost everyone on both sides of the ball, it's just building up more hype. And I'm getting so sick and tired of it. And Joel Klatt, I know he went to Colorado, but man, shut up for like 5 minutes, please.
Man, I don't think you're going to be liking it too much this year. I think that Colorado's going to be talked about a lot, so definitely be prepared, man.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that when Colorado plays a real team, they get blown out. Like week 3, they play Oregon. Actually, this coming up week, they play Colorado State, which apparently is a heated rivalry between the two schools. I know Colorado State sucks, but I would love to see that underdog win. But we'll have to see. And then obviously they play USC in week 4. So that's going to be a big loss, and that'll get everyone to shut up real quick.
Yeah, Caleb Williams will handle business there.
Absolutely, and I think Oregon's just going to handle them as well, and Oregon State too. I think they will also beat Colorado, but we will have to see. Sunday night we had Florida State and LSU. Did you watch any of that?
I did catch a little bit of that. I know Florida State ended up pulling out the win. I think Florida State's going to be pretty solid this year. I've heard a lot of good things preseason, them talking about them being a dark horse candidate here for maybe even a college football playoffs. I don't see them going that far, but, you know, top 10 team for sure.
I think Florida State is actually going to make the playoffs this year. I really
Oh, you
do.
do? Okay.
I really do. I think the playoff picture is going to be Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and then either LSU or Penn State is going to be also in the playoffs. I don't think a Pac-12 team is going to for sure make the playoffs, and if one does, it's going to be Utah. But no, I think Florida State looked really good. Keon Coleman, 3 touchdowns. I know as a Sparty fan yourself, that didn't make you feel happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, LSU went into the half with a 3 point lead, 17-14 at halftime, and then they only scored 1 touchdown the entire rest of the way, and Florida State just pulled ahead, and they look really good. Offensively, they look incredible. Defensively, there's some things that they need to work on, like wrapping up with their tackles. But I think overall, I mean, Florida State is going to be a juggernaut this year, and well, with Clemson proving last night that they can't play football, I think they're a sure shot favorite to win the ACC now. And then lastly, last game I want to get into, Ohio State beat Indiana 23-3. I watched the highlights of that game, and man, Ohio State does not look that good this year.
Yeah, I got to agree. I mean, Ohio State, I do think that they're going to be formidable, just off of name recognition. But their team is definitely not as strong, as the last year's team. And last year's team barely made the college football playoffs. It was between them and Alabama. Um, but yeah, I think that Ohio State, you know, even though they don't look as strong as they're supposed to be, it's a rivalry game with them in Michigan. It's going to be tough, but I do think I agree with you that Penn State's going to be the better team overall, more challenging this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't play that good against
Against
Indiana,
Indiana, yeah,
if you look that bad against Indiana, I don't even know how they're gonna survive against Penn State or Michigan this year. And obviously, as a Michigan fan myself, I really hope we just blow the doors off of Ohio State like I do every year. But Kyle McCord, he looked okay. He went 20 for 33, 239 yards. Uh, he spread the ball around pretty well. He found Travion Henderson more than anyone else. No, I'm looking at rushing there. But he did spread the ball around. Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think is the best receiver in college football,
mm-hmm. Yep.
only two grabs with 18 yards. Cade Stover 5 grabs for 98, and Julian Fleming 6 for 58. I just it was more defensively that bothered me about Ohio State than anything, but the receivers just didn't look that good. Kyle McCord looked way in over his head. Obviously, he's a I think he's a true freshman. No, he's a junior, but he didn't look good out there at all. And I think obviously a lot of that was nerves, but Ohio State's got a lot of issues that they got to fix this year. Lastly, I just want to get your thoughts. Obviously, Michigan State beating Central Michigan. It looked kind of sketchy after the first half. Really, I think it was 10-7 Michigan State lead, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so it was definitely close in the first half. I'm glad that State was able to pull out. They should be able to beat Central. I think State will be all right this year. I don't expect anything too crazy out of Michigan State this year. If they can even just be ranked and stay ranked this year, I think that would be somewhat of an accomplishment for their team. I don't think the hopes are too high this year. As long as they're just not absolute garbage, that's all I'm kind of hoping for the season.
Yeah, I think Michigan State is going to be a lot better this year. I think 8 wins is on the table for Michigan State. If I'm being honest, obviously I'm no Sparty fan. I'll root for Sparty as long as they're not playing Michigan. But I think they'll just they won't be good this year, but they won't be a bad team. And they'll definitely make a bowl game, but I think they max out at 8-4. But if they're 6-6, fire Mel, because
Yeah.
that's because he's a as he said it himself, he's a horseshit football coach. So um, we'll just have to see how that goes. So looking ahead, now that we're still on college football, looking ahead to this week, Michigan will take on UNLV. Michigan's favored by 36 points, so we won't we
Yeah.
won't we won't talk much about that. You got Georgia playing Ball State, favored by 42. Uh, there's not a lot of good games this week. Utah is going, I think, into Baylor. Yeah, Utah's going into Baylor.
Yeah.
Favored by 7.5. That's a pretty good game, but I don't think Baylor is really gonna do anything this year.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention the Baylor game. When Baylor got upset, and I think they were like 27-point favorites in their game, and they lost outright. So to Texas State. So that was just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that was. You're right. They let's see here. Where is that game? Yeah, they lost 42-31 to Texas State at home too. I mean, they
Yeah,
just man, that did not look pretty. I think Utah more than covers this one at 7.5.
for sure.
We got Nebraska and Colorado facing off. Colorado's only favored by 3, which tells you Vegas doesn't believe much in Dion. But I don't see anything because Nebraska's god awful. Every chance that they have to win a game, they find a way to lose. They're now like 1-27 since 2018 in one score games where they were leading
Yeah,
in
I
the
saw
fourth
that.
quarter. It's ridiculous. So I think Colorado's going to win that one. I would love to see the upset because I don't like Colorado. I don't like Deion Sanders. I'm tired of all the hype. But we'll just have to see there. Here's an interesting matchup for you. You have number 20 Ole Miss going into number 24 Tulane, with Ole Miss is just favored by 7.5. You got ranked Power Five versus ranked Group of Five. Um, I think Tulane here is a lot better of a team than people will give credit for, especially just being a Group of Five school. I think Tulane has the coolest football logo in all of college football. But I would like to see Tulane win this game, but I see it happening. I just don't feel super confident on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Ole Miss on this one.
Yeah, I just they're both barely in the top 25, especially Tulane being only ranked 24. I would love to see the upset, but yeah, I'm more 50-50 on it, more leaning towards Ole Miss though. Um, you got North Carolina playing App State. They're favored by 18. I think Drake May is probably the best quarterback in the country, unless you want to say Michael Penix is, because God, he looked amazing week one. Um, but I think Drake May is like the quarterback, that guy. I think he's better than numbnuts in USC.
Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Caleb
was gonna
Williams. Yeah,
say.
I
You got him over Caleb Williams?
I think he's a better quarterback than Caleb Williams. He's got a lot of swagger to him. He can run, he can throw. I mean, he just looks really good. So I think he's going to lead UNC into the top 10 this year, but probably that's about it. I don't see them beating, obviously, Florida State. And then I think they'll beat Clemson because, let's face it, Clemson's god awful.
Hmm.
But we'll just have to see. We'll have Bama and Texas. Texas going into Tuscaloosa. Bama's only favored by 7 on Saturday here, so that's a Saturday night game. That's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, man, I love to see Bama get upset. I've been a notorious Bama hater for the longest time. Do not like Alabama, but I do think that they will probably pull out the win.
I'm going to completely disagree with you. Texas is back, baby. I'm telling you,
Let's go. I'm hoping.
Texas is winning the Big 12 this year. They're going to go into Tuscaloosa. They're going to put up 50 on Bama, and they're going to win this game by 2 scores.
I hope that happens. I
Okay,
really hope that happens.
maybe not 2 scores, but I think Texas is going to pull off the upset because Texas is back. And that's really it for any interesting games this weekend or this week. You have USC taking on Stanford. USC's gonna blow them out. They're favored by 29. Stanford sucks. I don't.
Mhm.
Stanford won a game this past week, but I think that's the only game Stanford's gonna win this entire season. So we'll obviously have to see about that. Um, Obviously, we have Eastern Michigan taking on Minnesota. I think Minnesota's, even though it's favored by 20 and a half, Eastern Michigan, I watched some highlights of that game. They looked really, really good. And Minnesota looked so god awful. I think Eastern Michigan might pull off that upset against Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're gonna pull off the upset, but I'm definitely taking them in the 20-point spread.
Yeah, if they don't win, they'll at least cover.
Hmm.
I just yeah, it's not looking good for Minnesota, and yeah, we'll just have to see. Outside of that, let me look here at some. See if there's any juicy games and any conference games that are juicy. You got Texas A&M taking on Miami, with Texas A&M favored 4.5 on the road on Saturday afternoon. Um, does Texas A&M actually have a competitive team this year, or are they still just washed up and not that good?
I think they'll be better this year. I'm not sure if they're gonna win that game. Going into Miami is gonna be tough, but um, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I think that Texas A&M. I mean, they can't be much worse than they were last year. I mean, just they started out so high in the rankings and then just fell apart completely.
Yeah, I agree. I think Texas A&M is going to win this game. I don't think they'll win it by 4.5. I think it'll be a much closer game than that. Miami's a lot better than people will give them credit for. Obviously, they looked good to start the season last year, and then it kind of just slipped away from them, just like Texas A&M. But I think Texas A&M improved. But yeah, man, I don't know. I really I'm not a big fan of Texas A&M. I really wish they never left the Big 12 personally, but here we are, and I think they will win this game, but it's going to be much much closer than anyone thinks. Um, any other good looking games this week? You got Iowa taking on Iowa State. Iowa only favored by 4, and well, yeah, we know how Iowa is, so they can score touchdowns at least this year, so that's a good thing. With they got a really good quarterback in Cade McNamara. Obviously, he lost the quarterback battle to JJ McCarthy, which we all saw coming. I mean, JJ's an incredible talent, as we saw this past weekend, going 26 for 30. Yeah, a lot of them were dink and dunk passes, but he looked really good. But yeah, Cade, he's a lot better than people will give him credit for, especially after losing a quarterback battle. But man, it's gonna be uh, interesting to watch Iowa because now they have to. I forget what the deal was exactly, but they have to average like 25 points a game, and with only scoring 24 this past weekend, they have to now average 25.1 the rest of the year per game, and yeah, I forget what that was exactly, but someone's getting fired if they don't average those points. We're gonna segue from that into this week's rankings now. Uh, I'm gonna group everyone. I'm gonna group everyone into groups of five. So I'm gonna give you 25 through 21, and then go
Mhm.
on from there. And basically, you're gonna tell me if that group or if anyone in that group should be out of that group, into the group above, into the group below, or just not ranked at all. And
Okay.
so yeah, so we're gonna start with the bottom group here. You have Duke at 21, Colorado at 22, Texas A&M at 23, Tulane at 24, and Clemson all the way at the bottom at 25.
So in that group, I think that Clemson should be out of the top 25. The rest of them, though, I feel like for where they are, it's not too bad.
I think Texas A&M should be at the 21 spot and Tulane at the 22, and then just move Duke and Colorado down, and then
Hmm.
yeah, put Clemson out of the top 25, and then move either Iowa or UCLA, who received the second and or first and second most others receiving votes category, move them up into 25. So if you really want to go there, it looks like Iowa. But yeah, I'm not too upset with that, but I think they overrated Duke and Colorado, especially over more established ranked teams like Texas A&M and Tulane. So the next group, you got Ole Miss at 20, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, UNC, and Oregon State moving up 2 spots this weekend. And UNC gained 4, by the way, and they're at 17.
Yeah, so I think that those are all pretty good. I think, like you said, UNC can move up throughout the rest of the year. Oregon State, did well this weekend. Um, no real big changes or complaints with that group.
Okay, so Wisconsin being where they are, I mean, Wisconsin just I don't get it. They're going air raid this year. They're asking a bunch of meathead downfield blockers to do pitter patter pass protection now. So it's gonna be a work in progress for those guys. I think Wisconsin honestly should be out of this group into the bottom 25 if anything. Ole Miss, they're okay where they're at. Oklahoma looks pretty good, but it's Oklahoma, so I'm not a big believer in Oklahoma this year. And like you said, UNC obviously I think they're going to climb, and Oregon State I think is going to be in the Pac-12 championship game against Utah. So I have no problem there with either of those two for now. But if it's 3 or 4 weeks from now and they're still there, and there's other teams with losses ahead of them, I'm gonna be a little upset. So next, you're breaking into the top 15 here. You got Kansas State, LSU, Oregon, Utah, and Texas at 11. Uh, what do you think about these guys? Obviously, LSU dropped 9 spots from 5th to 14th.
Yeah, so yeah, LSU with the loss here. I do think LSU will bounce back. Kansas State, I'm kind of shocked by. I really haven't heard much about them this year. Um, Maybe replacing them with either an Oregon State or a UNC come to the future. But other than that, again, I feel like that group is solid for the rest of the teams in there.
Yeah, I think Utah, Oregon, and Texas should all three be up in the next tier in that 10 through 5 group or 10 through
Mm-hmm.
6 group. I mean, they're all really solid teams. LSU, I'm fine with where they're at. Kansas State, uh, they're they're the defending Big 12 champs, so I get why they are where they are, especially where they were to start the season at 16. Now they're 15. Uh, maybe move them down into the group below them, but I don't know much about them, but I know they lost quite a bit on both sides of the ball. I think they'll still be good this year, but I don't think they'll even be in the Big 12 championship game. Moving up into the top 10 now, you have Notre Dame at 10, Tennessee, Washington, Penn State, and then USC at 6.
So I think USC and Penn State are good there. I would probably take out one of the bottom two teams and replace them with either Texas, Oregon, or Utah right now, like you kind of said last segment there, for this group 10 to 6.
Yeah, I think you move Notre Dame out of this group
Yeah.
into the group below. Same with Tennessee. Washington, you can make an argument to be still in this group. You can't obviously put them into the top 5. There's just no way. But Penix obviously looked incredible this weekend. So I think if anything, you're gonna move Tennessee and Notre Dame out, and you either put Utah and Texas or Utah and Oregon into that top 10. But I think Utah definitely should be up there, but not up to the level where Penn State or USC are. Obviously, I think Penn State, like I said earlier, Penn State's the biggest threat in the Big Ten to Michigan. And then obviously USC, they're just really good offensively. Defensively, they still can't tackle, man. Like they could tackle slightly better than they could last year, but man, did you watch any of the USC's games last year? Because they looked horrible.
Not much.
Guys were arm tackling. Guys were juking themselves out to avoid having to tackle someone. It was like watching like
The
you know
Lions back a few years ago.
yeah or like watching like a bunch of like third or fourth graders play football. It was just like everyone was afraid to hit. They would rather drag people down instead of hit them, and it's just USC's still got a lot of work to do on that defense. Lincoln Riley, obviously, I think is a great coach, but he's got to figure out a way to get his defense to actually work for him. And then moving into the top 5, OSU dropped 2 spots from number 3 to number 5. Florida State gained 4 spots from 8 to 4. Bama went up 1 spot from 4 to 3, and then the top 2 stayed the same between Michigan and Georgia at number 1.
I actually think that's pretty respectable. I'm glad that Ohio State actually dropped some spots, even though they won their game. They did not look that impressive. Florida State, I'm glad they had a tough win against LSU, moving them up. Definitely value those tough wins above some other ranked teams. And of course, Georgia and Michigan are gonna remain as top spots. Alabama's gonna be up there all year as well.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think Bama is going to win more than 10 games this year. So I don't. I think Florida State should be at the 3 spot. I'm glad OSU's where they're at. They didn't impress, like you said. Florida State obviously looked really, really good. They're at number 4. I think they should be number 3, but we'll have to see. So obviously you have Michigan and Georgia at number 1 and number 2. And so no one has won 3 titles in a row since Minnesota did in the 30s, right? I don't think Georgia's going to win the title again this year. I think, and despite the loss this week, I think LSU still has a very, very good chance of winning the entire SEC this year. They have to win out now, but I think they still have a chance of winning the SEC. What are your takes on that?
Yeah, I agree. So, like you said about Georgia, in any sport, it's hard to 3P. I mean, it's one of the greatest feats that you can accomplish in sports. It's so difficult, so rare that it happens. So, I agree. I don't think Georgia's going to make it, but I wouldn't be shocked either if they did. I mean, they do seem like the best team in the country. I would love to see Michigan finally win it this year after that heartbreaking loss to TCU last year. And I do think the LSU has a chance here, but they, like you said, they got to win out. I think Florida State has a good chance. Utah is a dark horse. Of course, Bama is going to be in the mix as well. We'll see how USC does as well. And yeah, so that's kind of my takes there.
Yeah, so I think you touched on Bama. I think yeah they're gonna be good. I don't think they're gonna be that good to make the playoffs. USC they could. Utah obviously the dark horse. Uh, I don't know, man. This year is gonna be crazy, to say the least. I think if Georgia ends up losing the SEC title game, I don't think they're going to win their playoff game. I would really obviously love to see Michigan win the national title. This is the best team Jim Harbaugh's ever had. But and if JJ can perform like he did this week, I know it was East Carolina, but if he can perform just like he did this week and stay calm and collected when things weren't going his way, unlike he did in the TCU game, I think there's a chance Michigan really could win this national title. I think also Florida State has a chance, but we'll just have to see. This it's only week one. You know, some teams have played 2 games already in 1 week, like USC and Notre Dame, because that makes sense. But yeah, man, it's just it's gonna be tough for Georgia to go 3 in a row. No one's done it since Minnesota was playing a bunch of Boilermakers and pipe fitters. 'Cause, I mean that's what it was back in the 30s. A lot of the student athlete thing didn't really arrive until like the 50s. It was more just people that worked on the grounds of the college than anything. So that just tells you how intense the sport has gotten and how hard it is to really win a national title. That no one's done a three-peat since the 30s.
Yeah.
So moving on here from college football, I'm gonna let you take over and talk a little bit of NBA, give a little preseason preview.
Okay, so yeah, if you want to chime in as well, just let me know. But yeah, NBA here. There's been, of course, a lot of stuff going on. The draft was a huge deal this year. Of course, the Victor Wembanyama, considered the greatest draft prospect possibly ever here. He's going to have a lot of eyes on him. He performed super bad his first summer league game, and then he bounced back after that. Another thing that I guess I want to mention is right now the biggest talk in basketball is the World Cup or the Olympics here. Team USA definitely not looking too great. They lost to Lithuania, but they bounced back today with a win.
God,
So we'll see
that's
how that
embarrassing.
goes. Yeah,
That's embarrassing. A sport we've dominated in the Olympics forever. Just all of a sudden we lose to Lithuania.
yeah. We
what
lost to
what the hell is
Lithuania.
that?
There was this one guy, I forget the guy's name, but he was making a comment about how the NBA championship should be like, it's not the world championship, basically taking a shot at the United States team. And the team is definitely not as good as it used to be. We still have a lot of good players on it, some all-star caliber players, but back in the day they used to have like Kobe and LeBron on the team. The team was just absolutely stacked. Do I think that they'll still end up doing good and possibly win the gold? I do think so. They have a lot of great players here, but we'll see how that goes.
Speaking of LeBron, real quick, why is he not on the team anymore?
LeBron?
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like he's just old. I mean, LeBron's 38. He probably just doesn't want to do it anymore, to be honest.
That's understandable.
Yeah, so and that's the case too with like even the dunk contest in the NBA. Like no superstars want to do that anymore.
Really?
It's all like role players or average players, no superstars. It's not like back in the 80s when Michael Jordan was dominating the dunk contest. Now they just like have these sort of no-name players, I would say, competing in it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, very interesting there. But I guess wrapping up here for the preseason. The season is going to start end of October. October 24th is the first regular season game here. Like I said before, a lot of people are going to be watching Wembanyama. I feel like that's going to be the talk of the town here for at least the first few weeks. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how Phoenix does. They got Bradley Beal in a trade, so now they have Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal, all three star to superstar level players on the same team, but they really have like no bench. So we'll see how Phoenix does this year. Um, James Harden has been rumored in trades and being fed up with the general manager here, Daryl Morey. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Something that hasn't been talked about in a while, the Damian Lillard situation here. He was trying to get traded out of Portland, but rumors of that have kind of died down over the last few weeks. I still think that there is a good possibility he gets traded. He's made it very clear that he wants to go to the Miami Heat, so we'll see how that goes. Miami was just in the finals, so it'll be interesting to see how they do. It's going to be really interesting to see Denver this year, the defending champions, Jokic, coming off one of the greatest playoff runs in history. It's going to be interesting to see how he and the Nuggets play this year and see if they can repeat, go back to back. Seeing Joel Embiid, he is the reigning MVP for the league. And how he does, like I said, the 76ers are kind of in a crazy mess right now with the whole James Harden trade situation.
Seems like there's always drama that follows James Harden, man.
There is always drama, man. Just been a lot of stuff going on with him. Like I said, he was getting fed up with the general manager because he promised to trade him, then he kind of backed out of doing that, and they've just been kind of going back and forth at each other about that. We have the Lakers this year. It's going to be interesting to see. They are always polarizing. All eyes are on LeBron each and every season. We're going to be anticipating possibly Bronny coming into the league the following season here. You know, he had that health scare recently, but
yeah, that was scary to read about.
Yeah, LeBron going into, I believe this is year 21, so he has been just still going strong, still going at it. But yeah, I mean, unless you have anything to add, that's pretty much everything that's going on.
Well, guess a couple questions for you. Well, first of all, you mentioned Bronny. I heard something a while back, basically saying that LeBron is gonna play one season once Bronny gets into the league, and then he's gonna retire. Is there any truth to that, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, so he has made that very clear. I'm not 100% sure if he is going to exactly retire after the 1 year, but he did say that he wants to play with his son, and his contract for the Lakers, he's able to opt out after this year. And so whoever drafts Bronny is basically going to get LeBron. You know, he's made it very clear he wants to play on the same team with his son. So
Gotcha.
I would love to see like the Pistons, get Bronny, even though Bronny, he's a good prospect, but he's nowhere near the prospect LeBron was at all.
Right.
He's probably fringe first round pick, maybe even a second round pick at this point. I don't think he's really basically his draft stock is off of name recognition,
Right.
Being LeBron's son, if he wasn't LeBron's son, there's a good possibility he might not even be drafted. Like I said, he's a good prospect, but not an all-time great prospect.
Gotcha.
And yeah, continue.
So my next question, playoffs for the NBA. Do you have any predictions for, say, the championship series?
Yeah, so I think right now it's so early to tell. Last year, if you would have said Nuggets Heat in the finals, I would have been like, wow, I wouldn't have expected the Heat, and then Denver, that was their first time really getting over the hump of they'd always kind of fallen short the previous years. If I give you a prediction right now on who I think is going to be in the championship game, I'm going to go with. Um, I do think Denver has probably the best chance in the West of going back. Like I said, Phoenix is a team to look out for. Golden State could come out of nowhere again this year and be good. And then in the East, it's kind of mainly between Milwaukee and Boston here. I think Boston has a really good chance. I would probably say Boston. I don't see the Miami Heat repeating what they did last year. That was super tough for them to do as an 8 seed going all the way to the finals. So
Right.
I would say probably Boston and Denver are probably the preseason favorites right now to
Gotcha.
make the NBA finals.
And then lastly, some local love. What do you think the Pistons are going to do this season?
Yeah, so I was just about to bring that up earlier. Thinking about the Pistons, I do think that the Pistons will be better this year. They drafted one of the twins here, Asar Thompson. He has looked pretty solid here in the preseason. I think he'll be a good two-way wing for us. Cade Cunningham hopefully comes back healthy this year. He was injured for a lot of last season. Hopefully, Jaden Ivey does improve this year as well. He has been pretty solid. Jalen Duren has also been someone who's very solid. We're building a pretty strong young core. I do think, though, we will probably be a bottom 10 team again, sadly, this year, but I do think that we can, build more draft capital, keep drafting these young players, and hopefully have them develop. We just signed Monty Williams. He's our new head coach. He had coached Phoenix the past few years here. He went to the NBA Finals with Phoenix back in 2021. So he has experience running a good NBA team. So we'll see how he can handle all these young players. But the future is bright for Detroit, but we're still a ways off of really competing for a championship.
Right. That's good. And I like, obviously, I don't know crap about basketball, but I like that we added a established, really good coach, a conference winning coach at that. And then obviously, I know I heard Cade Cunningham looked pretty good in the summer league, so that's good. And obviously, Jaden Ivey, he's still developing and looking really good as well. So, yeah, I mean, from what I've been hearing, listening to a lot of Detroit sports shows and stuff, the Pistons are looking pretty good this year. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, but I think they'll definitely improve upon the last couple of years, especially with a new coach and this young core that we've acquired in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I don't think they can be much worse than last year. They won 17 games last year out of 82 games. They were just bad. And like I said, I chalk up most of that to their best player, Cade Cunningham, being hurt like 80% of the games last year. But yeah, like I said, I don't think they can really do much worse than last year. It was very disappointing in the draft. I think I mentioned this to you. We had the best odds, or we were top three for best odds because the bottom three teams have the best odds at the lottery, and the Pistons fell all the way to number 5.
Oh, sounds like the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, we absolutely got screwed. Especially like I said, Wembanyama was like the best draft prospect ever, and we fell so bad in the draft. But I think the player we got, Star Thompson, is very solid. I definitely feel like he can be a really good key contributor on future Pistons teams here.
That's good to hear. Yeah, obviously, just Detroit and Detroit sports and lottery luck are just. It's like oil and water, right? It's just like we none of our teams that have draft lotteries, well, just the NBA and the NHL. I mean, a few years ago, looking back at the Red Wings, they they finished historically bad, bottom of the league, and they had the best odds out of any team, which is 18.5%, and I believe the second best team has a 9.5% chance of winning the lottery. That's how stacked the odds were in Detroit's favor, and they fell all the way to number 4, which was ironically their least. So like the way the NHL breaks down the draft lottery odds, it was like the least likely scenario for Detroit. Um, Hold on, let me bring up the the odds um, calculator. So yeah, so so they had a correction. They had a 25.5% chance of going
Wow.
number one, and they fell to number four, which was like less than a 1% chance. So it was
Wow.
really bad, and because they fell that far, they changed the rule the year after that if you're finished last in the league, you're guaranteed a top three pick.
Yeah, so basically just had to make that rule just because how bad the Red Wings got screwed that year.
Yeah, exactly. It was ridiculous.
That's crazy.
It was,
25% chance, and you fall all the way that far. That's ridiculous.
and you have less than 1% chance of going to the top or of picking fourth. You basically had a 99% chance of a top three pick, and you hit the 1% of. And that's the other thing too is uh like Detroit and Vancouver in the NHL have the worst draft lottery luck. They've both fallen since they introduced the draft lottery. They've both fallen 8 times from their draft spot. This was the first year Detroit didn't fall, and then Vancouver didn't fall like once. I think 2020 was when they didn't fall at all. But
Hmm.
yeah, those two, the NHL just hates Vancouver and Detroit. Apparently, it's ridiculous. But so now that we're on the topic of the NHL, so man, obviously we talked about this before the Austin Matthews deal.
Yeah.
Uh, 4 years, 13.25 million. He set an NHL all time contract extension in terms of how much money is going to be paid per year. Um, that I mean, Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, obviously the top two players in the NHL. I know you're a huge fan of McDavid. Uh,
Yeah.
this is obviously a market-setting uh, extension, and I think obviously with uh, uh, the cap ceiling increasing this year, and it's also supposed to increase next year as well. I think obviously McDavid, when it's time, he's going to get paid well, and he might get paid more than Matthews. What do you think on that?
I think that he probably deserves it. McDavid, I would put as a better player than Matthews. Um, Matthews is absolutely incredible, and he's done a lot of great things. But of course, Toronto still hasn't done anything in the playoffs. But I mean, neither is Edmonton either. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so but yeah, I hope that McDavid probably gets more than Matthews, just because I feel like he's the better of the two players.
Yeah, I think he will. Obviously, I think Matthews led the league in goals last year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull that up real quick. Um, no, nope. McDavid did it with 64. So actually, Matthews was not even top 10, but he was out for quite a while last year. Yeah, he played only 74 games and put up 40 goals. So he did miss some time, and I just I think he's regressed quite a bit in the past couple of years, but obviously he's still an incredible player. If he could stay healthy, I think he can get to the 50, 60 goal area, but it's something that we haven't really seen from him much at all in terms of production. But yeah, I think this is a new uh, I don't know what the proper term here I should use, but it's basically the new standard for stars in the NHL. And obviously, like you touched on, Toronto hasn't done much in the playoffs with him, and at some point something's got to give with Toronto because they're in a lot of cap trouble. They have to move someone from this core, whether it's Nylander or Tavares or who else is in that core? Uh, Hold on here. Or if it's uh, yeah, Tavares or Marner or Nylander, someone's got to go here eventually. I think. Obviously, they picked up Tyler Bertuzzi on a one-year deal this off season, along with Max Domi. I don't know if those two are also going to be enough added to that core. I think Tyler Bertuzzi is going to boost that offense for sure, but and Max Domi obviously is a good two-way forward. He's gonna he's gonna make Toronto better, but I don't see Toronto again doing anything, especially with how few or how you know little cap space, and there's guys that they still got to pay, so they got to get rid of some guys here really soon. Otherwise, they're gonna be in some big trouble. Um, other places around the league, looking at some still you know free agents that are out there. You have Patrick Kane. There's not many teams out there that can afford to have Patrick Kane. Obviously, there's Anaheim. They have the most cap space out of anyone. Uh, with with uh, with 16 million. Chicago. I don't think he's going to return back to Chicago. Um, but it's a possibility. I think the two teams that are most likely, however, I say this as in they, based on where they are in terms of their rebuilds, are Buffalo and Detroit. They both have the cap space. They both are in position to make the playoffs, but I don't think he wants to go to a team that more than likely won't advance far in the playoffs if they advance at all to the playoffs. So we'll just have to see about that. And then you had Jonathan Taves. A couple of weeks ago, he came out with something. It was like a retirement announcement that wasn't really a retirement announcement. Like he still wants to play, but nobody wants to sign him. Chicago's not going to re-sign him because, well, if they really wanted him to retire a Blackhawk, they would have given him a veteran minimum contract to play one more year. So we'll have to see about that. Josh Bailey's still available. He's a pretty good forward. I would like to see a team like Columbus or Detroit or Nashville make a run at him, or even Buffalo, but Buffalo's in Detroit's division, and I don't want them to do that. So we'll just have to see on that. But then Detroit, I think, and I'm gonna give some local love here for a minute. Detroit, with the signing of DeBrincat and bringing in guys like Gossespierre and what's his name from Colorado this offseason, they're the Wings are making some really good moves. I think Detroit has their 40 goal scorer that they've been missing for a long time. JT Compher, that's who we signed. Good third line guy. Obviously, we're gonna have Robbie Fabry back this year, who's a really solid player, and this team is looking very exciting. Obviously, you're gonna have Raymond on the line with Larkin and probably DeBrincat on that first line. That's gonna be deadly. And then on the blue line, Detroit's got Edvinsson, who 2 years ago, when we drafted him, he had a very good uh, season in the SHL, almost comparable to Moritz Seider, and then we moved him to the AHL where he didn't compare to Seider as well. I'm excited for him still. He's a really big guy, 6'6", 209. And he can play the puck really well. He sees the ice very well, but he's got to work a little bit on his skating still. And obviously we have Moritz Seider. Everyone knows about him. Calder Trophy winner. He's going to be really good. The signing of Jeff Petrie, or the trade for Jeff Petrie was really surprising to me as well. this offseason. Obviously, he's the son of Detroit Tiger legend Dan Petrie. Um, so that's kind of cool. So it's a team he grew up watching. He's a Michigan guy by his dad obviously playing for the Tigers. Um, so yeah, I think the Red Wings are shaping up this year to be a really good team. And like I said, we have a 40 goal scorer now in DeBrincat. So uh, I think the Red Wings are going to make the playoffs this year. I think they'll be that second wild card spot at the very most. If they make the playoffs, that's where they're going to. Because I think Pittsburgh made a big win now move this offseason. They basically gave themselves like a 2 year window to try and win the cup one more time with Crosby. But outside of that, I don't see anything more for the Red Wings. And then I want to get your thoughts here on Ovechkin. Um, Obviously, last year he came into the season needing to just score 28 and a half goals for the average on his contract to pass Gretzky. He lowered that this year by quite a bit again. Let me look here real quick. Let me do some math now. He's at 822 to pass Gretzky. He needs 895, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and he has 3 years left to do it. He just has to average 24.3 goals a year now. The rest of the season. Do you think he's going to pass Gretzky for the most goals all time?
I do think he is going to. I think that he's probably going to get around another 40, probably around 40, maybe 50 goals this year. I do think maybe every year I feel like he's going to taper off, and then he never does. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to look at Ovi and his career and just compare him to other players where once they get to about 32, 33 years old, they start to regress. And he just kind of looked at that aging process and said, fuck that, I'm not doing that. And it just still produces at a very high level. Obviously, he still has the shot, which people like to point out that's all he does, shooting from the point all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at where he scores most of his goals, less than a third of them come from there. So he scores more goals from other places on the ice than he does there, but it's just the one shot that just no one can stop after all these years in the league from that position.
Yeah, and I want to get your take on this as well. So I remember seeing this video a few months back. It was talking, of course, about the Ovechkin breaking Gretzky's goal record, but there's another record that Gretzky holds that Crosby might be passing, and that is averaging at least a point a game, or yeah. So I believe it was a point a game for like 16 or 17 straight seasons, and Crosby is about to pass that. I think if he does it this year, he will pass Gretzky in doing that. What do you think about that?
So yeah, I saw exactly that, and I think Crosby will do it. Um, and the fact that Crosby's going to be able to do it in a league where it's a lot harder to score both goals and assists compared to when Gretzky played. Because when Gretzky played, he played against some very bad goalies and bad defenses. So it's incredible to just have seen what Crosby has done. I respect him as a player, but I hate his guts. But I mean, it's incredible to see what he's done, and it pains me too because like obviously I'm a Red Wings fan. We had that loss to them in the 2009 finals, in the Stanley Cup Finals, and everyone knows Crosby's a crybaby and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and Washington's like my second team, so having Washington beat or lose to Pittsburgh in the playoffs all those years was very making me hate Crosby even more. But what Crosby's been able to do, he hasn't put up the numbers like like Gretzky did, or like even Ovechkin does. But he's such a team player, and he's just so consistent that to do what he's done and what he should do this year with breaking that record, it's just been incredible to watch. And then lastly, here for the NHL, looking ahead to the season, obviously, I think October 3rd is the first night. I know camp here starts very soon. Preseason games sort of the end of this month. Um, Very exciting. I think we're going to see in the finals, we're going to see Carolina taking on the Colorado Avalanche in the finals. I think Colorado is going to win the West against a well. Let's face it, Colorado's not really has really no competition out in the West. The West is kind of bad. Vegas is a regression candidate. I can't believe they won the cup this year. I'm very pissed off about that. But I think Colorado is in position to just dominate the West and really their entire division because they don't really have anyone in their division because Chicago's bad, uh, Arizona's bad, Winnipeg is Winnipeg. They're just a middle of the road team. Nashville's gonna miss the playoffs. I think really only in their division they have Dallas, and obviously I think Dallas is gonna be really good. But they both play on the same side of the bracket this year, so they're not going to be with each other. And Minnesota's also really good, but again, it's Minnesota. They're going to be on the same side of the bracket unless somehow Minnesota slips enough to hit a wild card and play a Pacific team and work their way to the conference finals. But I just don't see it happening. And then obviously, like I said, I think Carolina is going to win the East. Um, if not, if they don't, I wouldn't be surprised if New Jersey did. They have a lot of first round picks on that team. You have both Hughes brothers on that team. Nico Heischer's still there. He's not a terrible player. He rebounded last season. He looked pretty good. So I don't think an Atlantic team is going to win the East. I think it will be a Metro team, and I think it will be Carolina. So, um, Mike, anything else you'd like to add before we close out this first episode?
Um, no. I definitely feel like we did a pretty good job at covering sort of everything for the first episode here, and going like college football and NFL are both coming back, and NBA and NHL will be back in the next month, and there's going to be a lot of sports that are going to be coming on each and every night.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously tonight's Tuesday. We have one more episode. We record on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so there won't be much in terms of content on Thursday this week. We'll more so look at the MLB on Thursday, I think. Just looking into the playoffs as the regular season is coming to a very quick close. It's already September, guys. I mean, yikes. Obviously, the MLB season being as long as it is, it kind of gets boring. Um, but I think we have an exciting playoff coming up in the MLB, and we'll kind of preview that on Thursday, as well as we'll talk about a few more games coming up on the NFL and the college football that we didn't touch on this week in this episode. So stay tuned for that. And thank you guys for listening, and we will see you on Thursday. Good night.